Good morning. I'd like to welcome you all to Little Doe. Brother Bobby Modern, if you would open us up in a word of prayer.
Lord,
So every day, we toil about in this world. Oftentimes we are lost in it, or we find ourselves distracted by something other than God. And we move through time day to day, focused on worries, or what worries us, or what could happen. We take the fear of the day-to-day and we use it as an excuse to neglect focus on the Lord and His plans for us. We as humans, or at least most of us humans, we will try to accomplish a goal or defeat an obstacle with the least amount of help from others, or the least amount of ripples we can cause, as we don't want to inconvenience anyone else, or we are too prideful or embarrassed to ask for help. We would rather spend 2 to 3 times longer and spend 3 times the price to do something ourselves than to ask for help. And on the spiritual side, we do the same. We are often too focused on our own selves. And by doing that, we are more likely to sow confusion and misinformation, because we muddle the waters with our own version of righteousness versus true righteous and judgment of God. And in more times than not in life situations, probably we act spoiled. We act like the youth of a parent. We hear the sound judgment of our Father, and we ignore it and think we know all the answers. We then go out and try to tackle whatever task it is that is before us, using our own methods, which in most cases is the exact opposite of what we were taught or told, only to end up falling short and then left wondering why and frustrated. Then eventually getting back up and going at it again, but with the advice that we were already given at the start, and to our dismay, finding out how easy it was of a task in that could have been in the beginning. We aren't alone in this world. We aren't the only person living on this earth. And if you think about it, we're also not the only person, dying either. If you don't stop to think about it, if you do stop to think about it, I say that as, one person cannot know or do everything. Even in the beginning, God created Eve for a reason, and that was to help Adam. We all need someone to help us. God knows that our burdens will grow heavy, and He also asks us to lay them down before Him, to allow Him to carry and to send someone like Eve to help distract us from life's sorrows. We aren't alone in this world, physically nor spiritually. And, if you look around, 9 times out of 10, you will find someone willing to help. When you see someone carrying an armful of stuff, most people will hold the door for them. Or if you see someone who's left their gas cap open, most of the time you will chase them down through the parking lot to make sure they close their gas cap. It's human nature to help out your brothers and sisters. But we don't think about that. On the reverse, we tend to keep our own burdens locked down and think that only we can try and fix it. A good example of this is Jacob, son of Esau. Time and time again, we see Jacob faced with the dilemma that Jacob decides that he's the only one that can fix it. He would then force his decision into place and do his very best to fix the situation, only to make matters worse, like making enemies out of family members, and in some cases spending years trying to make up for it just to be right back where he started at. Only then, after he's reset to see God's intervention at the end of the journey, recognizing the needless efforts he wasted making up for his own muddling, instead of following God's plans to begin with. Like I have said before, and if we allow God to send people like Eve to help us on our daily walk. Another thing God will do is that, what we don't see is, sending angels to watch over us and to protect us. We don't see the war that takes place daily around us. And we tend to ignore the fact that we are in a spiritual war. And oftentimes we are too much like Jacob. We listen to our own line of reasons and ignore God's help or help he sent through God, through somebody else. We try to brute force it. We waste time. And most of the time we still fall short. And then after that, hopefully, if you are a Christian, you can see, God's righteous judgment and his correct pathway that you were supposed to follow, and recognize it for, that divine blessing that is or is to come. Wasn't planning on doing anything else other than that, but in Genesis 27, verse 10, and Jacob went out into Beersheba and went towards Haran, and he lighted upon a certain place and tarried there all night because the sun was set. And he took of the stones of that place and put them for his pillow and lay down in the place to sleep. And he dreamed, and behold, a ladder set up on the earth, and the top of it reached to heaven, and behold, the angels of God ascended and descended on it. And behold, the Lord stood above it and said, I am the Lord God of Abraham, thy father, and thy God of Israel. The land whereof thou liest, to thee will I give it, and to thy seed, and thy seed shall be of the dust of the earth, and they shall spread abroad to the west and to the east, and to the north and to the south. And in thee and in thy seed shall the families of the earth be blessed. And behold, I am with thee, and will keep thee in all places where thou go, and will bring forth thee again into the land, for I will not leave thee until I have done that which I have spoken of thee of. And Jacob awakened out of his sleep, and he said, Surely the Lord is in this place, and I knew it not. And he was afraid and said, How dreadful is this place! There is none other but the house of God, and this is the gate of heaven. And Jacob rose up early in the morning, and took the stone that he had put for his pillow, and set it for a pillow, and poured oil upon it. And he called the name of the place Bethel, but the name of the city was called Luz at the first. And Jacob vowed a vow, saying, If God will be with me, and will keep me in this way that I go, I will give me bread to eat and raiment to put on, so that I come again to my father's house in peace. Then shall the Lord be my God. And this stone which I have set for a pillar shall be God's house, and of all that thou shalt give me, I shall surely give tenth unto thee. So this is when Jacob was going back after spending, 14 years in his father-in-law's house, working, earning his wives, as he fled previously from, the wrath of Esau, because he looked for his own way in the world instead of relying on God's help. That verse, if I'm not mistaken, or that chapter, segment, if I'm not mistaken, is often used as an inspiration for the song "They're Holding Up the Ladder." We're not trying to do this alone. The song is "The Angels Are Holding Up the Ladder," but I think there's also angels, maybe angels sent through a person to help you along your way. So anyway, I wasn't planning on doing this either, so I just grabbed a songbook from over there. So we'll see how this goes. They're holding up this ladder that I'm climbing on. I'm climbing up the ladder and I'm going home. At the top of this ladder, oh, what joy there will be. And the angels are holding up this ladder for me. As I climb this gospel ladder, always heeding every sign, I know my Savior's with me and He's teaching me to climb. Every day that I'm climbing, there's a battle for me, and the step on this ladder is another victory. They're holding up this ladder that I'm climbing on. I'm climbing up this ladder and I'm going home. At the top of the ladder, oh, what joy there will be, and the angels are holding up this ladder for me. There's a mansion being built for me somewhere in glory land, and I know that this ladder is just part of this plan. I can hear the angels beckoning, keep climbing, don't stop. There's a crown of life awaiting for you when you reach the top. They're holding up this ladder that I'm climbing on. I'm climbing up this ladder and I'm going home. At the top of this ladder, oh, what joy there will be, and the angels are holding up this ladder for me. Come on, you Christian soldiers, show the world a light can shine. Get on this gospel ladder and don't be afraid to climb. Can't you hear the angels cheering? Soon the battle will be yours, and we'll celebrate the victory when we reach that other shore. They're holding up this ladder that I'm climbing on. I'm climbing up this ladder and I'm going home. At the top of the ladder, oh, what joy there will be, and the angels are holding up this ladder for me. Joy choir practice today at 5. Plan on being here a little earlier this evening. And then sunrise service, breakfast, sign-up sheet in the back. I'm assuming that's for dishes so we don't overlap, or maybe workers. I'm not sure. Anybody having just how many's going to be here to eat? And then next Sunday, remember to bring some flowers for the Easter cross. On Friday the 18th, which will be this Friday, we have Good Friday service. Saturday the 19th will be the Easter party over at the Fellowship Hall for the youngins. The 20th, sunrise service at 6:30, and then Easter program at 11. We have one birthday listed on the 16th, that is Shane Clausen. And on the 12th, Jody and Jason Lacey is their anniversary. Any other birthdays or anniversaries not listed? Any other announcements that need to come before Sunday school? If nothing else, you are dismissed to your classes.
Well, this this morning we're going to move out of the kind of the dark time of the Judges and into a really refreshing story of Ruth. Ruth, scholars think, was written by Samuel. Probably took place. I saw a couple places. Put it about the time of Gideon. My Bible actually puts Ruth being born in, let's see, 1175, I think. Something like that. BC, of course. Ruth born 1175, and Gideon defeated the Midianites at 1200. So somewhere in that time frame, and one might wonder why this story, and it's not by accident, of course, is Ruth is married into the direct line of Christ. She actually is the, I think I wrote that down, the great grandmother of David, and so it's not by accident. Usually it isn't with God, and not a coincidence that her story is in here. And I know that everybody knows the story, read it probably many times, and it's a very, very interesting story. As you know, we go all the way back to Jericho when the Israelites came to there, and we had just had the story, I guess, a while back about Rahab. Rahab was the mother of Boaz, who is the key character in this story today. So, not a coincidence. I thought my Bible had a little description. I want to read that, just a part of it, a couple sentences. The book of Ruth is a delightful narrative with a classical plot that moves from crisis to complication to resolution. The narrator draws the reader into the minds of the characters, which I think is true, inviting us to identify with their personal anxieties and joys, and in the end, celebrate the movement from emptiness and frustration to fulfillment and joy. And I've seen that as I was studying this week, and I thought, wow, that's a really good description of the book of Ruth. We'll have two lessons. First couple of chapters will be today, and then the second part of this will be not next Sunday. Next Sunday is Easter, but the Sunday after. So the suspense will be building, I guess, after today. As you already know, Ruth was a Moabite, and interesting how that God brings her right into the fold here, and we're going to get to it in a little bit of detail. Just wanted to talk a little bit about Moab. Of course, Moab was the son of one of Lot's daughters and fathered by him, unfortunately. And then we had Ammon. And Ammon and Moab were idol-worshiping countries. No hint of God. Makes you wonder why that Amalek, I think I pronounced that right, Amalek and Naomi goes there. I mean, obviously for the famine, but kind of maybe a bad choice, it seems, that this could have been by the Naomi and Amalek. Let's see, something else. Of course, we will be moving on to 1 Samuel after this second lesson, so it'll be in the first of next month. So anyway, just a few little things here. most that you probably already know. And our setting today is in Bethlehem. It's where they come back to. Let's go ahead here and start to read Elimelech. That might be a better way to pronounce that. Elimelech. Elimelech. Okay, so it says, "Now it came to pass in the days when the judges ruled that there was a famine in the land, and a certain man of Bethlehem, Judah, went to sojourn in the country of Moab, he and his wife and his 2 sons. The name of this man was Elimelech, and the name of his wife was Naomi. The name of his 2 sons was Mahlon and Chilion. Chilion, that's an interesting name. Euphratites of Bethlehem. And they came into the country of Moab and continued there." So, again, maybe not the best choice, and the reason I say that is Elimelech's kin, Boaz, he stayed behind, and we'll get to it. I'm getting ahead of myself here, but he stayed behind. He didn't go to Moab, even though there was a famine, and he done very well. It says that he was very wealthy. So I think it wasn't the best idea to go. Now, I've already said why they went. And as we've been studying in Judges, we see how that the people would do evil in the sight of the Lord. We've read that a few times back in Judges, and then along would come the judge to save them, and then they would fall back again. So kind of on this roller coaster ride, and you can't help but think, I don't know that the Scripture tells us exactly, but you can't help but think that this famine was because of their unbelief, their idol worship. And I say that, and I want to read this from Deuteronomy, a few verses, but I think it's important, 3 or 4 or 5, I guess. "And it shall come to pass, if ye shall hearken diligently unto my commandments, which I command you this day, to love the Lord your God, and to serve him with all your heart and with all your soul, then I will give you the rain of your land in its due season, the first rain and the latter rain, that thou mayest gather in thy corn and thy wine and thine oil. And I will send grass in the fields for thy cattle, that thou mayest eat. They may eat and be full. Take heed to yourselves that your heart is not deceived, and ye turn aside to serve other gods and worship them. And then the Lord's wrath be kindled against you, and he shut up the heaven, and there be no rain, that the land yield not her fruit, and lest ye perish quickly from off the good land which the Lord giveth you." Now, I believe we can tie this pretty much directly to the sin of the people, the idol worship of the people. And, you know, when God makes a promise, he sticks by it. And I also would like to think that we still, it's the same way today. And, you know, our country used to be put God first, and now it doesn't. And I think it brings on problems. I think there's a direct correlation to this, and you know some may disagree, but I do believe that if a nation puts God first, He'll bless them. And I wanted to Psalms 33:12. I asked Christy this morning to look that up. Psalms 33:12. I forgot to find it in here, but I'll find it real quick. "Blessed is the nation whose God is the Lord, and the people whom he hath chosen for his own inheritance. The Lord looketh from heaven, he beholdeth all the sons of men." So that's, again, a direct promise. Blessed is the nation whose God is the Lord. And definitely, during the time of the judges, the God wasn't their Lord. They veered off and was putting their idols up front, and we know that God is a jealous God. So I believe we can say that a direct this famine was directly based on their idol worship. Again, I said it was probably sometime around the time of Gideon, and here they go off to Moab. And verse 3, and Elimelech, Naomi's husband, died, and she was left and her 2 sons. And they took them wives of the women of Moab. The name of the one was Orpah, I don't know how, Orpah, I guess. And the name of the other, Ruth. And they dwelled there about 10 years. And Mahlon and Chilion died also, both of them. And the woman was left of her 2 sons and her husband. So tragedy strikes down in Moab. First of all, and as you read it, it may appear that the father died even before the 2 sons were adults. I put that in there. I don't know, but at least they weren't married when he died. So, and then here goes the sons, and while God is more pleased when the Jews married within themselves, they couldn't do that, and they picked them 2 Moabite women. Now, in this case, it seems that it wasn't the worst choice, as Ruth follows after Naomi, as we'll see. And even though Orpah, here I am with Oprah. It's not Oprah, it's Orpah. I'll try to not do that again. But anyway, she was also seemed to be a decent woman, and she, I think, at least thought about going back. I'm getting ahead. I guess we all know the story a little bit too well, but they've been down there about 10 years, and now the sons have died, and now it's just the 3 women. So really sad. I guess you could speculate on how they died. It doesn't say. Obviously, the sons were quite young. Don't know exactly how old Elimelech was, but the sons, just down there a total of 10 years, not all that old, but tragedy. Death is no respecter of person, as we have seen and already know. In verse 6, then she arose with her daughters-in-law, she might return from the country of Moab, for she had heard that the country of Moab had heard in the country of Moab how that the Lord had visited his people in giving them bread. Wherefore she went forth out of the place where she was, and her 2 daughters-in-law with him, and they went on the way to return unto the land of Judah. Now, I'm sure that Naomi was really sad. She not only has lost her husband, she's lost her 2 sons. It would have been easy for her to blame God and say, wow, he's not really taking care of me. She does make a comment here that we'll read, but I don't believe that she blamed God because she went back. She could have went somewhere else or stayed in Moab with those godless folks, but she thought, I believe it's time to return, and she had heard through the grapevine, we'll call it. I don't know how she heard, but somehow or another, in Moab there was discussion about, hey, it's raining again up in Judah, and there's bread again. So she goes back, and it says that she went with both her daughter-in-law, so she started back. Now, this between Bethlehem and Moab, a place that I read commentary said it was somewhere between 30 and 60 miles away. but it took, because the terrain was rough, and that was depending on which way you went, it took about a week to travel back to travel between the two places, and so they get started, and you'd think that both daughters would stay in Moab. That's where maybe their parents were, or whatever. But it says that they start there in verse 7, wherefore she went out the place where she was, and her two daughter-in-laws with her, and they went on their way to return to the land of Judah. And Naomi said to her two daughters-in-law, Go, return each to her mother's house. The Lord deal kindly with you, as ye have dealt with the dead, and with me. So I think that the women had a good relationship, even with the other daughter-in-law besides Ruth, and Naomi was conscious of that, and she blessed them, and even made a point to say, you all go, and the Lord be with you, which was, I'm sure, a phrase that they used, and I believe He will, because you have been really good to me and my two sons. So while marrying heathen basically could have been a disaster, but I don't. In this case, I don't think it was. I think that she had a couple of pretty decent daughter-in-laws, especially with Ruth. In verse 9, it says, "The Lord grant you that you may find rest, each of you, in the house of your husband, of her husband." Then she kissed them, and they lifted up their voice and wept. So we had a crying spell, and really sad look like departure between Naomi and the two daughter-in-laws. And they said unto her, Surely we will return with thee unto thy people. Now, again, this is a little out of the ordinary that they would stick with another race, basically, instead of staying with their family. I can't help but think that there was at least some mention of God between Naomi and Elimelech and the sons, and so I think they at least recognized God. Probably growing up, Ruth and Orpah, get that right. But anyway, they, I believe, at least took on God and some of His ways. And Naomi said in verse 11, Turn again, my daughters. Why will ye go with me? Are there yet any more sons in my womb that they may be your husband? So Naomi's saying, now I'm getting up in age, and I don't believe I'm going to be having any more sons for you to marry. And I guess that we'll see some of the culture, maybe not in this lesson, but next time, that when a husband died, somebody in the family needed to try to step up there, and Naomi's really stretching it out here, and it's just not common sense to think that she would have more sons so that they could take care. That'd be, we're talking about another 20 years before that'd even be possible. So, turn again, my daughters, go your way, for I am too old to have an husband. There we go. If I should say I have hope, or if I should say I have an husband also tonight, and should also bear sons. So she said, even if I have a husband now, it's still going to be a long time, and that'd be a little strange. Anyway, would ye tarry for them till they were grown? Would you stay for them from having husbands? Nay, my daughters, for it grieveth me much for your sakes that the hand of the Lord is gone out against me. Now, I read that, and I read that a couple of times. The hand of the Lord has gone out against me. Again, I don't believe that she's throwing off on the Lord. I believe that just the way that, when we lose loved ones or something, especially maybe more than one at a time or something like that, it's death is again no respecter of persons, and the Lord has gone out. The hand of the Lord has gone out against me. Is she saying that maybe we made a mistake by coming down here? I don't know. I think we just have to take that statement as it is. And they lifted up their voice and wept again. And Orpah kissed her mother-in-law, but Ruth claved unto her and said, Behold, thy sister-in-law is gone back into her people and into her gods. Return thou after thy sister-in-law. So Naomi does as much as she can to try to get Ruth to turn it and go back. But as you know, Ruth is having none of that. In verse 16, and Ruth said, Entreat me not to leave thee, or to return from following after thee. For whether thou goest, I will go. Whether thou lodgest, I will lodge. Thy people shall be my people, and thy God, my God. And that's a verse that we've all heard, and possibly this is some of the marriage vows. I don't know, but it's a touching phrase that she says to her mother-in-law, and you can see the love, I think, between the two. She's known them for some time, and there's a connection. And the other thing is I think that maybe Ruth has accepted the ways of Naomi's God. I think that she has said, "Hey, if you go and I stay, I'm right back to the false idols, and maybe I don't want to do that." And things like this happen. It does make more sense for her to stay and maybe find another husband, or go back and to Bethlehem and take her chances. So that's the way it's going to go. And I'm going to read that again because it is good. Entreat me not to leave thee or return from following after thee. For whether thou goest, I will go, and whether thou lodgest, I will lodge. Thy people shall be my people, and thy God, my God. So, I suspect that Ruth understood that Naomi was getting up in years maybe and going to need somebody to take care of her and help look after. Regardless, I think there's a love there that we have to see. Where thou diest, I will die, and there will I be buried. And the Lord do so to me, and more also, if I'll put but death part thee and me. So she's in it for the long haul. She's made her choice, and as we look at the story, definitely it was the best choice. We're able to see in the future. They couldn't. Ruth and Naomi had no idea what they were going to do next. As you know, and we've talked about before, widows had a very difficult time during this. They had nobody to look after them. And it's prominent in the Old Testament and even Jesus to say, got to look after the widows and the orphans. You have to do that because it's a very difficult time for them otherwise. So, verse 19, they arrive in Bethlehem. It says, so they two went until they came to Bethlehem, and it came to pass, when they were come to Bethlehem, that all the city was moved about them, and they said, is this Naomi? So she's been gone 10 years, but she was still known. They hadn't forgot her. Maybe a little bit, but they said, oh, okay, I guess it is. And she said to them, call me not Naomi, call me Mara, for the Almighty hath dealt very bitterly with me. So Naomi means pleasant. The name Naomi means pleasant or sweet. And then Mara, which is the title of our lesson, means bitter. And I don't remember reading that part, but that's all about to change, I think, as you know. I went out full, and the Lord hath brought me home again empty. Why then call ye Naomi, seeing that the Lord hath testified against me, and the Almighty hath afflicted me? So Naomi returned, and Ruth the Moabitess with her daughter-in-law with her, which returned out of the country of Moab and came to Bethlehem in the beginning of barley harvest. Really good timing, as you already know. Anybody like to make a comment here on chapter 1? I don't think we're going to get through chapter 2, but we'll finish it up next time. Anybody? Well, I'll read a few verses here, and then, like I say, we'll pick it up the next time. And Naomi, in chapter 2, verse 1, and Naomi had a kinsman of her husband's, a mighty man of wealth of the family of Elimelech, and his name was Boaz. Now, again, we don't. It's not given to us how they're related. Are they brothers? I think it would have said probably. So probably not brothers, but there is a family connection. Most likely, I figure they're cousins of some. You know, their dads were brothers or something like that. Regardless, he's in the family, and Naomi. I don't think she had any idea who would be there or what the situation would be after the 10 years. I don't think she, I think she blindly went back. And there's something to be said about going back. I think in our life at times we'll get maybe carried away with the cares of the world, or often something that is more related to the world, and I think that we need to get back. I think that it's a good thing to revisit and come back to God and draw closer to Him. I don't think anybody would disagree with that. And Naomi, again, she could have went the other way. She could have said, God's deserted me. I don't want anything more to do with Him. But she didn't do that. She was conscious of the fact that she had had some problems, and she said so. Even to changing her name, probably not legally, but for people to look at her a little bit differently. On down there in verse 2, it says, And Ruth the Moabitess said unto Naomi, Let me now go to the field and glean ears of corn after him, in whose sight I shall find grace. And she said unto her, Go, my daughter. Now, as you think about it, they could have went back to Bethlehem and both just kind of went there and sit and said, well, now who's going to take care of us? And, I kind of fear that a lot of people do that today. Who's going to take care of me? Who's going to give me money? How am I going to get food and all this kind of stuff? And now I don't want to take away that a lot of that is very well deserved. There are those who can't take care of themselves for whatever reason, and I think that's well documented. But there are those who prefer to sit and do nothing. Ruth wasn't like this, and I think that it goes a long way as she finds favor with Boaz. Boaz recognized what kind of person that she was. And again, we'll go with the coincidence thing. It's not a coincidence when God is involved. He put them right back exactly where they needed to be, not only to bless Naomi and her and Ruth, but to also further the cause of the lineage of Christ. God is always, I think, unbeknownst to us, but He's always working behind the scenes on our behalf. I think that we can always, I think we'd always all agree with that statement. Sometimes we don't even know what we need. Ruth and Naomi just wanted to survive. They didn't really know what to expect. But here goes Ruth out to the field. Now, this wasn't by mistake either. Thought I had the verse there in Leviticus written down. Maybe I didn't. Let me find that. Leviticus 19, 9 and 10. And I wanted to read that to point out how that in the law, in the description of how God said to do. Leviticus 19, 9 and 10, it says, "And when you reap the harvest of your land, thou shalt not wholly reap the corners of thy field, neither thou shalt gather the gleanings of thy harvest. And thou shalt not glean the vineyard, neither shalt thou gather every grape of the vineyard, that thou shalt leave for them for the poor and the stranger. I am the Lord your God." So this was written down in the law, such that a way to take care of the poor, the widows, that they could go out to the corners of the field. And I kind of picture as you come around in there with the wheat or the barley, and you got the corner, you leave that part. You kind of round it off, and you don't go all the way, and it leaves enough there for the poor, the widows, to come in there. And the word glean, I guess, I meant to look that up, but it just means to gather up some that's left over. And Boaz was a fair man, and in fact, we'll see that he says, "Hey, I want you to leave even just a little bit more. Leave a little bit more than normal for especially Ruth." And we'll get to that the next time. Did I hear the bell? Bell rung? Okay. Well, I thought I did. Anyway, let me just finish up here. It says in verse 3, "And she went and came and gleaned in the field after the reapers, and her hap was to light on a part of the field belonging unto Boaz, who was the kindred of Elimelech." And Boaz was recognized Ruth and her hard work, and he has probably heard about Ruth and Naomi, and Ruth coming all the way back. So anyway, we'll leave it there. The bell's rung, and we'll have maybe plenty of time the next time to finish up the last part of 2 and 3 and 4. I'll try to make that fit in. Sorry about all that, but we still got time. So anybody'd like to make a comment? Anybody got something you'd like to add here? Right. Definitely, there's people in need, and I think we all should be conscious of that fact and help out where we can. And I think that sometimes we do a good job of that. Maybe sometimes not as good, but I do think that God did leave a way, and I think that He leaves a way now. I just want to comment on the famine part I think my whole life God has really blessed us. I don't know if that will always be. I meant to say that earlier. I don't know. It seems like our world is in chaos. I think that we can do our part as a person and as a church is to always put him up number one and lift him up above all. Somebody else. Yeah. That'll be we'll get to that when the kinsman redeemer have a little more to talk about that. I didn't wholly mention that, but definitely next week or the week after, actually, we'll get into the kinsman redeemer, not just for Ruth and Naomi, but Christ is our kinsman redeemer, so we can be thinking about that. Somebody else. Well, I appreciate your attention, and I'll dismiss us. Lord, thank you again for this day, this beautiful day you've given us, and a time that we can glean from your word this morning. Lord, I just ask your blessings on our class, and Lord, our service to follow. Be with Brother Sam as he brings the message, Lord. Thank you for him and what he stands for, Lord. Just be with him. And Lord, I just ask you to be with us for the rest of the time. So in Jesus' name I pray. Amen.